Before I start, I just wanted to give a quick snapshot of our organization. I'm sure everyone here knows International Road Dynamics very well. We have our head office, a corporate head office in Saskatoon in Canada. We are a Canadian company, publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. We have over 5 subsidiary offices, wholly owned subsidiary offices across the world. We have our subsidiary office in the States, in Mexico, in Chile, in Nigeria, and India. The office out of India is based in Delhi, and this is IRD South Asia. We are responsible for the markets in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and some other countries in the South Asian area. A couple other offices are investment offices. We have subsidiary offices in Brazil as well as China, and we have a part ownership there. And other than that, we have various partners and distributors across the world with whom we do business. A few of them are mentioned on the slide here. So we are truly an international company, and we are celebrating our 30th year internationally doing business this year, and we have spent about 11 years or so in India so far. So some of our core technology and market applications specific to the market in South Asia and India, it all started out with the toll collection systems, and as we gradually progressed, the need came for enforcement. We have weigh in motion, so some places across the world in North America and some of the more developed economies and markets, we have CVO operations, that is commercial vehicle operations, or actual weigh in motion stations. In India, it's slightly different. I think the question that we just looked at, it was more about, it's an emerging market, so we are getting there. We are looking at marrying the technology of weigh in motion with tolling. And the other areas that we do business in, other verticals, are traffic data collection and management, the highway traffic management systems. We have just finished a few projects in India in the HTMS area, and also service and maintenance. So operations and maintenance, looking at operating the toll plazas, having our staff, manpower deployed in the toll plazas, so we operate as well as maintain the plazas. Other than that, a few other areas, the in-vehicle systems, traffic safety systems, and security systems, areas like access control. So these are some of our market applications and verticals. So the presentation that I have for today is a little bit more weigh in motion centric, and the reason for that is I think we have spent some time in tolling, but I think the next step is in India, what we have done so far is data collection, and this is mostly on the exterior wide lanes of every toll plaza. But the next step, because of all the problems we have with overweight trucks, is enforcement. So the reason why it's important is for asset management and infrastructure management. The basis is the wear and tear on the pavements and other structures by any vehicle is directly proportional to the weight of the vehicle or the axle. There's something here which is important to understand. There are 2 items. One is axle loads, and the other is GVW, or the gross vehicle weight. So vehicles can be GVW overweight or non-compliant on GVW, and they can also be destroying the asset or the pavement, and they can also be overweight on axles. So they can be GVW compliant but overweight on some axle loads, and that also leads to destruction. So both these items are important to understand. And the other factor which comes in is the relationship is not linear, it's exponential. So as GVW increases for heavy vehicles and as axle loads increases, the pavement damage is exponential, as you can see in the graph here. So that's why it's really important to have a policy or infrastructure in place where we can manage the overweight vehicles. At IRD, we consider ourselves to be a one-stop shop for all weigh in motion applications. What I mean by that, as you can see on the slide on the right, is we have several weigh in motion sensors. Now the question always arises, which weigh in motion sensor do we use? And what is the appropriate sensor for the application? It all goes back to the application. What are we trying to achieve? Is it short-term application? Is it a long-term application? And all the other considerations. So being a system integrator and a manufacturer, we manufacture the bending plate, the single load cell, the slow speed weigh in motion scales. We also integrate with the linear quartz sensor and the piezoelectric sensor. Some of our applications in India right now that we're working on are high speed weigh in motion, where we are looking at defining a threshold for overweight vehicles, helping concessionaires, helping the government come to a stage where we have a policy and an architecture on how we enforce such overweight vehicles. So we have a varied variety of sensors. The single load cell is more of the Cadillac. It's a higher cost sensor, but again, it's durable, it's long lasting, and it can last in the pavement for over 25 to 30 years, as per what we have seen in some of our applications. The bending plate, on the other hand, again, works for both slow speed and high speed weigh motion applications. In India, and specific to the market here, we have used the slow speed WIM scale on, as I just mentioned, on the exterior wide lanes of every toll plaza. At this point, we are just providing data, and it's for data collection. The next step, of course, is going to be enforcement, and very soon we are going to see how we come to that stage. So the bottom line is, we have various sensors, and the decision on which sensor we want to use really depends on the cost-benefit analysis. What are we trying to achieve? Is it a short-term goal? Is it a long-term goal? And how do we want to do that? And with this decision-making comes all the other factors. So a quick snapshot of some of our achievements around the world. In North America and South America, we have done extensive work in weigh motion, as well as Europe and now Asia. In Asia, our biggest markets are, of course, India, China, and Korea. On the tolling side, this year we're looking at exceeding 1,000 toll lanes in India, and that's a significant achievement that we're very proud of. The other important things to mention in the market in tolling in Asia is China, and we look at that. We look at a couple case studies of what we have done in China. We have about 1,500 toll lanes in China, and about over 500 toll lanes for weigh motion at toll in Korea also. So when we look at weigh stations, now going back to just weigh stations, we have several models. You have the automated mainline weigh station model. We have the ramp sorter system model. The first one, the one you see at the bottom left, the mainline weigh motion screening model, is a little bit more for a mature ITS market. This is some of the things that we have done in North America. So just to quickly explain, there are basically three sections, as you can see in the diagram. On the high-speed section, you have the mainline screening. So it won't be a very expensive sensor. It basically gives you a sort decision in terms of, is the vehicle overweight or is the vehicle compliant within GVW and axle load considerations. And let's say the vehicle is compliant, they just continue to move ahead. You have VMS sensors and cameras, which also provide for enforcement and there's a provision to capture any vehicles which are not complying with the laws. If the vehicle is in fact overweight, you have a weigh motion station there, and there's a bypass lane where the vehicle can go and gets measured with a little bit more accurate sensor. So that could either be a slow speed weigh motion scale or a bending plate, depending on what, again, the objective is. Something what is more applicable to the Middle East and the Asian, South Asian, and specific to the Indian market is a ramp sorter model. And the reason is basically, given the situation in India, it's not very easy to be able to distinguish and be able to ensure that we are having weigh motion on cars and trucks. And so the bottom line is you want to segregate the vehicle class. So all the overweight class, the HMVs and the multi-axle trucks are sent on a bypass lane, which is a ramp lane. And if they're overweight, then they come in, they pull into a slow speed section, and that's basically where the officers are, and there's also an area over there to unload. So depending on the way the architecture is established here, some places you have a binary system. If a vehicle is overloaded, there's a penalty. If it's not overloaded, it's fine. In some areas we have more of a phased approach. So let's say you pay by weight. And in some areas also you don't allow vehicles to travel beyond a certain level. So this is probably something what we would be applying in the market here in India. So summarizing the weighing and classifying of vehicles, we have three options. Of course, the static weigh stations, but the challenge over there is we have slower throughput, and it's large infrastructure investment, it's cost. And the main thing is throughput. In the transportation market, as I say, time is money, and we don't want to waste time weighing vehicles. There's a long lineup. The other option is the high-speed WIM lanes on the road or tollways. This is for more mature markets. specific to what we have in India, and we just talked about this in the earlier presentation by Mr. Palekar, using ISO 18006C, which is now the national standard for electronic toll collection. So we can have trucks, all vehicles, be it LCVs, cars, trucks, multi-axle trucks with RFID tags, and the class, the type of vehicle information is stored in the database. And when the vehicle passes by the weigh in motion station or the toll station, you're able to identify what type of vehicle it is. And of course, then there's another component, which is the AVCC component, the vehicle classification component, which gives you a match between what the vehicle is actually registered as versus what was observed. And then you have video camera surveillance and enforcement to ensure that there's proper matching. So again, and some of what we have been able to do and accomplish in China is results with our bending plate. That is what we have used over there. In China, the government came up with a mandate of having plus minus 2.5% inaccuracy, less than that, at 90% confidence intervals. So that it goes back to actually three factors. It's not all just about the sensor. It's important to understand that a lot of this has also to do with the electronics. And over the years, we have really been able to now fine-tune our iSync electronics to get to a point with the algorithms where we are accurately able to identify the integration with the electronics and the sensor to be able to give accuracies. The other consideration that goes back to the ASTM 1318 standards in North America and the COS 323 European standards is the roadway structure, and to ensure that the road surface is as per the standards so that you can have proper accuracies by weigh in motion. So it's actually a function. Proper weigh in motion is a function of three components. It's not just the sensor, it's the sensor, the electronics, and having proper roadways, which is all important. We talked about Korea. In India, as I mentioned, so far what we have done is basically data collection. This is on the exterior wide lanes. The next step is an enforcement strategy, and we are moving towards weigh in motion at the toll plaza. That's one option. So where every vehicle, regardless of what class it is, goes to the toll plaza, gets introduced through weigh in motion, and pays a certain amount based on the weight that they're carrying. The other option is an extension of the toll plazas into the sorter stations. We already have the exterior wide lanes with the slow speed weigh in motion sensors, so we can extend that to sorter stations so that all the trucks get directed to the exterior wide lanes, and then you have a sort decision, and then they specifically pay by weight. So some of the models I just wanted to present, and some of the work that we've done internationally, and also where we are heading towards in India based on the ITS architecture. Before I conclude, I just wanted to put some pictures up there of some of what we have done at toll plazas. This is specific to weigh in motion, and the picture over here on the bottom right is using our bending plate sensors. So with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rish. Okay, we have time for a couple of quick questions, and then we proceed for tea.
You talked about tolling systems as well as your weigh-in motion systems. But you have not mentioned about the integration of the both of the two. In case if I want to integrate both of the two, in case I want to have the tolling as well as your weigh-in motion together, so has there any you have any mechanisms so that both the things can be recorded together, and accordingly you can what you call do the tolling as well as weigh-in motions? This is the kind of integration I'm talking about.
Yes, that's right. That's what we have. We have electronics, and now sensors for weigh in motion is separate. That's not really got anything to do with tolling in the environment today. Our electronics is able to integrate to both the tolling side as well as the weigh in motion side, so that when any vehicle goes over, regardless of what class it is, they are also being judged by toll, and you can also have an integration to weight. So you can either get them to pay toll, standard toll, or you can get them to pay toll by weight. So yes, we are able to integrate both weigh in motion as well as tolling. So we are providing the total solution. It's a turnkey solution.
Why do you have the technology to implement, a weigh in motion based, weight based tolling? How practical would it be to implement in India Because if you see the way vehicles also are sold, commercial vehicles, a vehicle which is a 1 ton rated capacity actually should be able to carry 2 tons or more, right? And this is common information amongst buyers. So overloading is a cultural situation in India. And are there any thresholds defined by NHAI on weight for a vehicle?
Do you answer or do you want me to answer? First of all, this is a contentious issue. It's not something which has been resolved. We got to look at two things. You see, the equipment that whether IRD or anybody else would provide would only be able to throw up data and give you the information to act upon. Whereas the actual enforcement comes, okay, based on the laws that are defined by the state or the center, depending on whether it's a state highway or the national highway. And as we speak today, there is no such policy which has been implemented. So on one hand, when you say that yes, as it is, the vehicles are overloaded, that's a cultural thing, fact of life. That is how it is today. But in absence of any enforcement rights given to either the concessionaire or the O&M contractor who is operating a road, it's right now not even existent. So this is something that the government, the Ministry of Road Transport and some of the other ministries like Law Ministry and all, they would have to work on and come up with a policy document. Only then I guess this could be implemented.
That's right. I would just like to add a couple of things. The question is basically goes back to legislation, and as you said, we don't have legislation today, but that's the next step. Overweight vehicles is such a big problem in India and specifically in the market here, and there has to be something to be done which has to address this, because all the money that concessionaires, the government is putting into infrastructure development, otherwise, over time, you're not getting the accurate return. And I think the sooner we have some legislation or some policy, the better it is. And again, this goes back, there's no one right answer. Across the world, there are so many different models that are followed. In some cases, as I mentioned, it's binary. You either pay for overweight or you don't pay. In some cases, you have different levels, so based on the amount overloaded you pay. In some cases, like in Qatar, they stop you. They don't even let you go ahead if you're beyond a certain level. So it really depends on what legislation and framework we want to put in here. We have to have something which is, of course, applicable to the market. But I think that's coming, and I think it's really important we get there quickly.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. The last one.
I'm Colonel Ajay Sharma. I was part of National Institute for Smart Government, and right now I'm with Tata Consultancy Services. I have a point of views. I have a point of view for the panel because for the first time I've got a set of experts. Whenever I cross a toll, I understand that toll is primarily to recover revenues to satisfy your partnership of PPP. Intelligent transportation system, fine, but toll, I presume, has only this role. Whenever you consider going beyond the need of toll into the efficient use of technology for tolling, has it ever been deliberated as to what are the other alternatives through which this revenue could be generated and we don't need tolls at all on the roads?
Well, I really don't know what to answer because, if I say, yes, you are right, then we are all out of business. And if I say, no, that's not correct. But let me try and give you an answer. I really don't have an answer, but I'll try and give you an answer. I think it's largely dependent on the policy of the government, okay? Today, the road construction program in India, if you look at when it started, let's say about a decade or a little more before, prior to that, the quality and the number of kilometers of roads that were available vis-a-vis what has happened now is, with the PPP coming in, the number of roads have come up and the quality of roads have improved and so on and so forth. And no private businessman is going to put in money without securing his returns, right? So you get a good quality product and you pay for it. The only way of avoiding these tolls is for the government to say that, okay, the private companies will construct the roads, okay, and you pay us, And we saw that Golden Quadrilateral was primarily built based on a EPC contract. And today, the revenues which are being generated on the Golden Quadrilateral, which is the largest network of road in the country, is really pittance. I mean, you hear the minister talking and the NHI officials talking about the low collection of revenues and the deficit that they might face up if the revenues are not improved. So, I don't know. I've just tried to give you some information on this. Yeah.
Just to add what Manoj has said, there are other options available other than direct toll collection, like shadow tolling or collection through that cess and other things. But again, it's totally depending on the policies of the government. So that again, you have to see.
And we are the greatest democracy. You must remember that. You have different sides pulling each other.